And then the other question, I love her voice. And then the other question is just how you want me to act as a moderator. My default is that I just, once you get started, I'm going to mute my video and I'm going to sit back and just be, you know, part of the chat like all the other attendants. But if you want me to, I can ask you questions or I can moderate, or you just tell me what you would prefer.
Either way is fine with me. I think you can play it by ear if you feel like you need to step in.
Ready to step in?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, it's 1:06. I say we get started. So you're going to go to 1:20. I'll give you a 5-minute warning just in case your fans are keeping you too long. And just the big introduction is, I don't know, Sam and Tiz were amazing last night. If you missed them, holy cow, there's a YouTube archive on the New Music Gathering channel. It was dazzling. It was a dazzling opening to the concert. And I don't think I've had as varied conversations about a performance yet during the gathering. There were people who focused really in on reference, people who focused in on just the overall lushness of the, I'll call it orchestration. Like, I don't know what to call electronic orchestration. Landscape of sound. I don't know what to call it. You know, Tiss's amazing voice. Just there was so many different conversations about engagement that I'm so glad we have this 15-minute block for you two to really talk about your thoughts and process. And that's it. And I'm going to be quiet. If you have any questions for these folks, maybe pop them in the chat and they'll see. And that's it. Take it away.
Yeah, okay. Great. So we didn't necessarily prepare a presentation and want to see what people are curious about. We're happy to talk about any aspect of it. There's a lot of things. There's, I guess, maybe to throw out some ideas. There's the nature of our collaboration, what that was like. There's some technical stuff that we both could talk about, just in terms of what's involved in singing it. I've got a lot of compositional things I can talk about, involving the way I set the text, okay, getting cues from electronics. Yeah. Okay, good. We can talk about
that's
that.
a good question.
Yeah, and just a few other things that are like, I guess, of particular compositional interest I could touch on, that if you're curious about. Use of alternate tunings was a big part of my process. Can talk a little about that. Using Latin meter for rhythmic material. Landini cadences. Yeah, okay, so...
Do you want to start with the mechanics of getting cues?
Yeah.
Well, as we said during the performance, the project was originally intended as a recording. We did it all during COVID, and that means we could take a lot of leeway that you normally could not take, well, not as much in performance with how things were rhythmically arranged, because if you record in multiple takes and things are in like a weird meter or they're spaced by an irregular amount of time, then you just record them separately and just place them where you want. And then when that turns into a live performance and you have to stick to that architecture, you find yourself suddenly going like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, boom, 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 and then the thing goes more, and then it goes, and then and then I wait like kind of like half a beat, and I look at Sam from the corner of my eye, and then I go. And we think about this very, I don't know, not that differently, but a little bit differently, because Sam is the composer, so Sam has the anatomy of the thing in his mind, and I have a very sort of like sensual approach to it. So I'll count. I mean, singers can count if you make them. But really, I'm thinking more like, okay, it goes like diddly, and then boom, and then this thing, and then when it rises, and then it just goes to that thing, and then it just kind of looks like that, and then I go. And so it's a little bit more like a brute force cue. Originally, Sam cued me for almost everything when we were practicing. And then I think by the time we were at the concert, you were doing sort of backup cues, but I had it in mind, and by brute force. It's for me, it's a similar. No, it's not hard. It's similar to driving or like riding a bike, where the process, like just cognitively, is not like, okay, I'm going to do 15 rotations and then on the count of 3, it's just more like you're like, oh, there's like a tree, and when it gets there, I'm going to kind of do that. And then you don't fall and you go the right place. I mean, that's just kind of how I sing.
Yeah, I think this touches on actually something that was a through-going thing in our collaboration of a lot of learning by rote, and a lot of kind of combining these different ways of approaching it, which I found very satisfying and also illuminating. I'm coming from much more of this like, oh well, you just subdivide it like this, a very like number-y way of thinking. This also came up a lot with the tuning, where I'd be like, oh, this one's a syntonic comma lower than the last one, and they'd be like, just play me the recording and I'll sing it back. So when we were recording a lot of this stuff, I just had synthesizers with like MIDI files loaded into them in the correct tuning for whatever section we were in, and we would just go through and I would play the file back several times, and then they would just sing it back. And this was also ended up being a sort of more clutter-free way of notating some of these microtones. Like for the parts that are on just intonation, my score has all of these extended Helmholtz-Ellis accidentals in it, which I use to keep track of it, and that's my way that I understand it. And then Tis was just doing it all by ear. So it's kind of cool having these different ways of interfacing with the same material.
And so, I mean, you know, to speak to the entire process, this is Evan's question. A collaboration is really between a specific composer and a specific performer, and that's not just a question of style and a question of instrument, but that includes people's specific cognitive personality. People are very different. Some people are dyslexic, some people have like difficulty focusing, some people see colors, some people are just really good with counting. People are different. There's not really a right way or a wrong way to do it. There is, let's just say, a mainstream way of doing it, which tends to be that the composer prepares a paper product, as if the composer is like some sort of graphic artist that's supposed to have all the instructions. And then, I mean, this is how I learned when I was in conservatoire. They're like, you know, your score should be such that if it gets sent to like some other place and you're not there for rehearsal, and I'm like, well, why would I not be there for rehearsal? If I'm not there for rehearsal, why are they playing my piece? And all the instructions that are there, and then I'm, as the performer, some sort of computer, and I look at the tuplets and the things, and the thing that says like +4 whatever, comma, and so some people are very good at that, and I admire that very much. But I also don't think that's a superior way of working. I think on some level that way of working is mediated by the fact that we live in this capitalistic system where time is money, and you have a grant and you only have 2 hours of your ensemble, and they want to look cool, so they just want to have all the instructions. We didn't work like that. We don't believe in that musically or ideologically. We're very aligned in this, Sam and I think this is also why we're able to collaborate. I want to hear the thing a million times. We were very respectful of each other's sort of just cognitive profile. Sam would say, okay, it has this like tuning thing and like this, and I'm like, I understand your need to say that in order to organize your thoughts. I have no idea what you said. I'm not stressed out by the fact that you have no idea what you said. Just play it. And then I would hear it, and it would just be some tuning. And for Sam, it would just be very clear. It would be like, this is like quarter comma something something. And for me, it would just be like, okay, this is the one where the just G sharp is a little sour and just really doesn't like the B flat, and they're just kind of fighting. And there was a map of it in my head, and it was very precise. I think this is really what I want to emphasize also, this for the benefit of other performers and other composers. This way of working is very precise. We're not just kind of we're not sort of like bullshitting and making things. You know, it doesn't have to be mediated by a paper thing. Like, you know, the tuning was really exact. The rhythm was very exact, and you get that. It doesn't have to be on paper. You get that just by listening.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that we were able to get into some like more detail than a lot of, you know, I've had a lot of these really good experiences too, where you just bring in the score and people read it and they do a really good job. But you don't have it often as, sometimes you do, but often you don't have as much opportunity to really like try and do different things and really like sink into these details of something like tuning, where these almost every movement is in a different tuning. There's a lot of historical tunings as well as just intonation. And like that's the type of stuff that's very hard to communicate accurately through a score. That's actually much easier to feel, you know. And so this was I found it really actually like it expanded what I could do as a composer to be working in this way.
And I think also, in terms of the role of the performer, I felt fully justified in questioning Sam's decisions, not by saying, "Oh, this is wrong" or "This doesn't look good," but if Sam was like, "This is louder" or "This is tuning like this," and I, I would say, "Why? You need to tell me why. What is this doing in the piece? Why is it? Is it just there as a gadget? Is it just there because it's funny? Is there a reason? Does this create tension? Is this part of a certain kind of architecture? I need to know, as a performer, why I'm tuning this way, why I'm going louder, why I'm, and also because I bring different devices. Because I know the instrument. This would be true with any performer. Sometimes the composer's like, this, make it louder. And I'm like, maybe you don't mean that. Maybe you mean more overtones of a particular kind. Maybe you just bring it further to the front so it's more prominent. So, then you're like, here are the devices that are available. If you tell me what the rhetorical idea is, then we just kind of build it together.
Yeah, there were several of these things where I like would have like something really high because I wanted it to be intense in a certain way, and they would say, well, I'll actually have less control up here. And if you want it to have this like focus and intensity, let's actually do it an octave lower or something like that. This was really illuminating. Sometimes I think whatever instrument you're writing for, you have a concept of what you think will happen if you write in a certain register or in a certain way. And it's really helpful to get the feedback from somebody who, Tis is also a composer, and this, why are you doing that? What are you trying to accomplish? Very helpful to then realize a better way to accomplish what I was trying to do.
On a human level, basically, this is going to sound trite, but what really is necessary for this kind of collaboration is a sense of trust and respect. Because you can't have that if you're defensive and you're like, oh, are you implying I can't sing? Or if the composer's like, oh, are you implying I don't know what I'm doing? You have to just be like, no, I fully trust you that you know what you're doing, and therefore it's safe for me to say, what if we try this? Will it be better? And also, we pushed back a lot on each other without getting offended. A lot of times Sam would be like, I appreciate what you suggested, but it's not what I want. Just do what I say, and I would just do it.
Yeah.
And so...
We had a lot of back and forth about how there was one line in Greek that we debated a lot of what Greek pronunciation should be used. That was one of the more contentious things I remember.
We had a lot of fun. The thing is, we ultimately, the ethics of this project is we really like this. We really like working together. We love the text. We weren't doing it for the glory. It was COVID. We were in a basement. There was nothing around. There was nothing else in the world than us, the Latin text, and a bunch of mics. So we were like, we love this. This is our world now. We were totally in it. There wasn't, that's so.
Yeah, I think maybe just a couple things to say really quickly about like, Evan's question about how the mechanics of electronics. This was actually originally written for acoustic instruments, and then we decided to do it like this to, again, have more control. It would have been really hard to get like 6 players to play on all these tunings and stuff. So I was working from a score and orchestrated a lot of it. And a lot of it is contact instruments I make myself from samples of acoustic instruments. I have several analog synths. I'll process Tiss's voice a lot. So like there was a lot of vocoder. There were a lot of things too where I would just like take a snippet of them singing from a different song and like reverse it and run it through reverb and then reverse it again. And like some of these kind of glowy background textures are built from highly processed vocals. And I played some instruments too that I had around. So I was able to recreate some of the string parts I wrote playing the viola and the bass, which is something I also was very not comfortable doing and don't have a lot of practice with, but felt really liberating to be like, all right, I'm like a reasonably competent musician. I can pick these up, and I also have my computer so I can edit them together and stuff. And like, I would not be able to perform this viola part live, but like when I can stitch it together in my basement, great. And that's fine.
Do you want to say a word about the EP that just came out?
Oh yeah, this is crucial. So we did release 3 of these songs already. There will be a full album eventually. We're not totally sure, sometime next year probably, but we're going to be releasing them bit by bit. There's 15 songs altogether, but 3 are out right now. Bandcamp, Spotify, all of the streaming platforms.
Just look up our names and you'll find it.
Go on whatever platform you like and look us up, and it'll show up.
And in a few months, you'll hear more, and we'll keep releasing more. And talk to us. We like to hear from you. Just talk to us. We just really enjoy talking to people who like our music.
Yeah, great. So thanks so much for having us, Lainey. It's really nice to be here.
Well, you know, we all love you, and we're excited for all the music to come. So much music. My one tiny question before we transition to Patti, is this like, we are collaborating, the two of us, forever? Are you open to new and different collaborators? Like, there were so many people came up and were like, I want to work with these people.
Yes,
Yay,
please.
absolutely.
Like, I want to talk to all of them. I want all of them to write pieces for me. I want to go, like, live in everyone's basement. And really, this is what I live for. And I had these conversations with a few people last night, but, like, absolutely don't be shy. That would just be, like, the most amazing thing, I think, for both of us. And then we're not married, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm married, but not to Sam. People, come talk to me and say, I like your voice. I like how you work. I want to work for you. I'd be very honored to come talk to Sam and say, I like your work. I like what you've done with the electronics. I like you.
I also do a lot of work as a producer, and so this is another way that I'm happy to collaborate with.
Yeah, there were a lot of performers. I'm sorry, I'm so exhausted. There was someone who wasn't a singer who was like, I wonder if Sam would write me a piece like this. And I was like, yeah, I think it was a Grant. I forget who it was. I was like, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, but definitely talk to us, or, if you know who they are, put us in touch. We'd be
will.
very honored.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Well, I'm a super fan, and I'm now demoting you. You're demoted. Thank you. Bye. And I'm going to promote the amazing Patti Kilroy. I just have to find you. Where are you? There you are. Promote to panelists. Gonna promote you, Patti. While Patti's popping in, I'll do the quickest of introductions just to say I'm a Patti Kilroy superfan. Hi. Boy, oh boy, I learned new things about, I shouldn't say unproductivity. I don't know. I learned new things about holding patterns during COVID, and I'm so excited to learn that about myself, and I'm so excited to hear Patti talk to all of us about what we can learn from our new holding patterns. Take it away, Patti. Same deal. I ask you, are you comfy with it being recorded? Yeah. Everyone in the chat, we're recording everything you say. And I'm going to just mute myself, but you call on me at any time if you want me to help you or moderate or anything.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Lainey. Hey everyone. So I hope you have been having a good new music gathering, good summer. I'm going to be taking us through like a little reflection Padlet activity I thought of. So thanks for being game for it, and thanks to the organizers for also being game for it. I don't know. I like chat icebreakers. So yeah. And I know we've been listening to a lot of cool music. I've been like really enjoying the YouTube streams here in LA. So if you think of one, drop in the chat your favorite noise that comes to mind that might be from this event or like influenced by the gathering. Espresso maker, nice. Yeah, mine is like the one that really keeps coming to mind for me are like broken sevenths on flute. I really like that sound. So yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, barista banging. Espresso maker is such like a joyous sound. I love it so much. Anything coffee related, I'm like happy with. So anyway, yeah. If you think plucky prepared piano, nice. Latin text, music boxes. Ooh, yeah, these are all really fun. I love chat icebreakers. I know it's cheesy. I've been doing them for like all year at this point. But anyway, I'll start by just sharing a little bit. Nice sound of the audience before the stream goes live. Um, I'll start with like sharing a little bit about myself and why I wanted to do this. I'm a violinist, and primarily I am also an educator. And I used to teach at a few places, and go to school in New York City. That's how I met many of the fine folks at this conference. I moved to Los Angeles in August 2019, and I started teaching in LA at Cal State LA. Naturally, things were pretty busy after a move, new job. And then COVID happened in March 2020, so things got simultaneously less busy and more busy. Like all of a sudden, I didn't have anything and like any playing work. It all gotten canceled. And then I was also very busy making a lot of adjustments in my teaching. And I found that like I was suddenly a lot more mindful of my health, of both my students and my own. Both physical, as in like I didn't want to get sick, I didn't want my students to get sick, but also like just there were so many changes we had to navigate that could affect our mental health. So I was coming up with like activities where my students were sharing with each other. I went to a couple conferences where everybody was kind of just sharing about their approaches to just navigating COVID, and it made me think, as I was thinking of like a proposal for New Music Gathering, about like where I was as a performer at this time. Like, especially with everything getting canceled, I felt a little lost. I promise this has a point. But I did some, like, I mean, granted I did some things, because in academia you have to do things and show that you're doing things, but I guess this time has really made me realize that I don't feel like super validated by big projects like albums and recitals and books. Like I like collaborating and being part of it, but I've just always enjoyed much more and felt more validated as a musician by small things like going to rehearsal and like the small interactions you have with collaborators and working out your parts. I feel like I've always enjoyed the process much more than the final product. So, and with everything closing and me having to really pivot, like, and figure out like, oh my gosh, how am I going to put things on my CV? I had more space to kind of just explore. And this kind of brings me to the idea of holding patterns. And these I define as just like really small, low-key, regular or semi-regular activities that are just centering, creatively fulfilling, good for lockdown. So I wanted to expand on this as a group activity and give people a chance to share about their personal holding patterns. So maybe we can draw inspiration from each other, just hear a little bit about what folks are doing. I feel like this time I felt super isolated, especially like I was also like new in a new city. So I found it very comforting to just get on like Zoom or FaceTime or even Messenger with people and be like, what have you been up to? And they're like, I'm baking bread. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's like a weekly ritual, and sourdough starter is like a part of your life now. So I'll start by just sharing a couple things that I've been doing, that and like mine are music related mostly, but yours don't necessarily have to be music related. Oh my gosh, yeah, definitely put that in the Padlet when we get to it. One thing I started doing was like more solo transcription. I've always wanted to learn more about like jazz style and jazz idiom solos. I really enjoy transcribing solos. It made me able to play. So there was like transcribing solos. I also started doing more personal research about pre-colonial cultures in the Philippines. In particular, like with one New York City-based group that did virtual classes. I also did a little online activism with a group called Malaya Movement to spread some awareness about the ongoing political troubles over there. And I also just kind of continued and maybe made more weird electronic music than I did when I was playing a lot more. Like, I feel like sometimes folks feel like they have to do things that are super serious in Ableton, especially when they're new. So I was really happy to just have Ableton as like a refuge for getting out of my school's LMS for like an hour or two. That was really key to surviving in my particular situation. So those are the main ones for me. I'm going to also put them in the Padlet. They're pretty random. They're not particularly related to each other. And I don't know if they'd ever like amount to a whole lot or culminate into some like big grant-worthy application project to like that I would apply to as like a project, but that's not the point. And I think this whole COVID thing made me realize that it's okay for those sort of things, those small activities, to just be for me and not lead to anything. So now we're going to get into the activity part. We're gonna use Padlet. I'm gonna just share my screen real quick. Hopefully y'all can see it. And if you aren't familiar with Padlet, it's pretty fun for making like informal sticky note board like collaborations. You can post little bits of text. You just like double click here. Oh, and now would be a really good time for me to drop in the chat the link to the Padlet. So here's the link to the Padlet if you want to pull it up, but I'll show you first how. So you can go in. I really like the picture feature. So one of the pre-colonial cultures I checked out was the Taboli tribe. So here's like something like them dancing in like their traditional garb, and you can add a caption. So, and then you just hit publish. Oh, and then, yeah, there it is. So we can all, so you can also just post little bits of text, making weird Ableton sounds. So what I think would be fun to do, if you will humor me, you can share anonymously, leave your name, you can leave a link, if you like, but I would love for us to spend a couple minutes just going into the Padlet and sharing our holding patterns. So here's the link one more time. Hopefully folks are able to like add their stuff. Let me know if you can't. I think I did the permissions correctly, but I'll just put on some music and we can add our stuff. So here we go. Let's take a minute to wrap it up, and we'll look at some of them together. Cool. All right. So let's just check out this Padlet together in our last couple minutes. Yeah, walks in the dark before bed. Learning to play basketball with my mom. That is super cute. Listening to more music. Yeah, I have also started listening to more music. It's weird how you can be a musician and not end up not listening to music because time. Improvising with synth sounds, meditative acoustic guitar patterns, getting in the garden. Yeah, I had a little gardening kick, a balcony gardening kick. This is awesome. 2 courses of free remote recording workshops. That's awesome. Yeah, and if you have links you want to drop in, please, you can this Padlet will still be here. You can keep going into it for more ideas, organizing, cleaning. Ooh, congrats on finishing Ocarina of Time. That is a classic game. This is awesome. And oh yes, absolutely. Feel free to share the Padlet, if you like. But yeah, I know we're out of time, so thank you all for just being game to participate in this, sharing your time, what you're up to. Please feel free to revisit the Padlet. I'll leave it there. Check out any links folks left, or just get new ideas about regular centering holding patterns. So stay healthy, take care during this time, and thank you.
Yay! Well, gosh, even just the soundtrack. What was the soundtrack you were playing?
The lo-fi hip-hop music to study to.
Yes! Spotify lo-fi playlists. That is a holding pattern. That is a holding pattern. I did before pandemic. That never occurred to me. Now I'm like, this is outstanding. Anyway,
I love
Patti,
it so much.
I love this so much. I'll share it on the New Music Gathering Facebook, and hopefully, I'm so dumb on the other accounts, but when Marion and Angelica land, they can post it on the other ones, and we can just see. I'm so curious what people are going to post. I love that it's music and not music, and that'll affect all our music. And
yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for being game to let me do this.
You're awesome. You're awesome, and I'm demoting you. Demoted. Okay, and who do we have here from Golden Hornet? We have. I'm looking at the list. I'm looking at the Graham. I saw someplace. Where are you? Are you still here? You're still here. Okay. Boom. Panelist. And we need. Wow. Why is it hard? Oh, I'm not wearing my glasses. That's why it's hard. Why can't I read? I can't. Sorry. It'll take me just a quick moment to find everybody on the thing because I can't see. Graham, who else are we looking for? I can't really.
Felipe and Judlin.
All right, Judlin, promote to panelist. And where are you?
There we go.
And boom. Hopefully I got that right. I'm having trouble seeing my own screen. Is everyone here who should be
That's
here?
everybody.
That's everybody. Okay, well, same deal. Do you want this recorded?
Sure.
Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Awesome. And I'm gonna just retire into the background and let you talk, but again, I will just be a ghostly presence. Call on me whenever you wish to. Let's keep the talk about pandemic, what we've learned from our pandemic selves going, but I'm here if you need me. Woo!
Woo!
Great. Hey, everyone. So I'll just have us introduce ourselves quickly and then talk a little bit about what we did during the pandemic. So I'm Graham. I'm a composer and I'm the artistic director. We have a small nonprofit, Golden Hornet, and Felipe and Judlin are collaborators and friends, and we did things together throughout all this. And I want to, while recognizing all the loss and all the tragedy that happened over the last year, there were also some opportunities. So we're mostly focusing on those. So why don't we have the two of you just talk a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what your relationship to Golden Hornet is. Let's start with Judlin.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm a contributor to KMFA in Austin, classical music station, with my feature Staccato. And throughout the pandemic, I've been interviewing orchestras, opera companies, chamber music groups. What I am hearing from many of them is the words that many of the other panelists talked about, pivoting. They had to get out of that old box and find a new box. And much of it is not necessarily composing music, although many of them did compose new music. They got on pickup trucks and went through neighborhoods to sell their wares. Some orchestras or patrons of orchestras or operas hired opera singers and or quartets to come to their neighborhood in a truck, whatever they got, with 4 or 5 people to sit in the street and play. They invited their neighbors. Some orchestras and opera companies also made a little money doing this. So these are the things that I know about and what's new. And also because we're going into the 21-22 season, I've also learned that a number of orchestras, I don't know about opera companies, but a number of orchestras are now offering digital-only memberships, which means you can be anywhere in the world, pay for this membership and see a performance of something that you would like to see. Felipe, go ahead.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Felipe Perez Santiago. I'm a composer, I'm a conductor, and I am the artistic director of the Vortice Ensemble, among many other things. And I'm in Mexico City now. I live here. And I've been a long-time collaborator from Golden Hornet. We've been recording albums. We've been doing concerts. We've been promoting events. We've been doing master classes, etc. During this pandemic, in particular with the Golden Hornet, we did very, very interesting projects. We did 3 projects actually so far. The first one was a long-time collaboration that we've been planning already for more than a year between Graham and I. That is the MXTX project, a cross-border exchange. I think that I would prefer that Graham explains in more detail, but I was a very close collaborator to Graham, especially considering everything we had to do from the Mexican side. So I was, let's say, the Mexican contact and helped gathering people and samples and recordings and composers and producing, recording, performing, etc. So now we are entering to the new period of the MXTX, which is to start actually performing live. Then I was also part of the Young Composers Concert program. So I was a teacher there, I was a mentor. It was really amazing to be tutoring very young composers, incredibly talented composers mostly from Texas. And I was from Mexico City mentoring their pieces and helping them in their final performance for their, let's say, the end of the course virtual concert that we did for that. And finally, also during the pandemic, we did the String Quartet Smackdown, which we performed all the way from Mexico City. Julian was there broadcasting. It was really, really fun. Since the thematic, it's already like a WWE Smackdown event, we twisted it a little bit towards the Mexican side with a lucha libre kind of concept. It was really, really fun. So those were 3 projects I did with Graham in particular, and we have many, many, many more. But something that I learned from this pandemic, and it's something I wanted to share with you, was doing contacts, doing connections. Mm-hmm. I have for many years a lifelong dream, which is to have my own orchestra. I've been the artistic director and founder of the Vortice Ensemble for 3.5 years. But since the pandemic started and we couldn't perform live, okay, we did a lot of recordings and we did a lot of streamings, etc. But me and my associate partner, Gerardo Aponte, another Mexican guy with whom we founded originally the ensemble, we now fulfilled a lifelong dream, which was to found a full orchestra. So we took this time of the pandemic to get together, to make contacts, to call musicians, to partner with people that rent instruments, to partner with recording studios, to partner with sound engineers, to partner with people who rent even chairs and music stands and transportation and everything. So it was a very, very productive year, because even though we cannot still perform with the orchestra, but we have everything ready for the orchestra to perform tomorrow if the COVID situation allows it. So basically my experience, however, of course, terrible it was, because I also lost very dear people and I lost people of my family, and we know the dimensions of this tragedy. But I said, okay, either I sit down and do nothing and whine about it, or I start working really, really hard in fulfilling one dream that I've been having for all my life. So now we finally have this fully functional symphony orchestra that now is open for any kind of strange project.
Yeah, love it. So exactly what happened with us was we had to rethink, of course, every program that we do. We actually canceled very, very little. South by Southwest, the big music conference here, we weren't able to participate in that, but every other project that we had planned, we kept going just in new ways, and then opened up new opportunities. So like the 3 of us together did String Quartet Smackdown, and wouldn't have occurred to us to have the quartet be in Mexico City while we're co-hosting here. Or with our young composer program, we have the young artists from 8 to 18 compose, but also help produce the concert with us. So they know everything about putting together a concert by the end. But usually we connect them all with local mentors, professional musicians, or people working in whatever area of music they're interested in. And in this case, we were able to connect them with mentors from anywhere in the world, because everyone's now used to the Zoom technology, and so it just broadened everything in a way. I felt more connected to a global community than I ever had before with our Golden Hornet efforts. Julian, yeah.
One of the things that I'd like to mention regarding the String Quartet Smackdown, that was so much fun. We were doing it, through Zoom and various other platforms, is that for the first time ever, all the composers, even the ones who were not in competition, were able to watch the show, hear the music, and see the winners, at least hear about the winners. And that was the first time, Graham, that was very important, I thought, that these composers who couldn't travel, even before the pandemic, they couldn't get there to Austin for the event, they were finally able to see what is going on with the string quartet Smackdown and hear the wonderful music.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing we pivoted on with our young composers was embracing technology more. You know, when I do my daily work, and I think Felipe, when you do yours, there's a mixture of electronics with acoustic. And of course it's digital, and I've spent a lot of time on the computer as well as playing acoustic instruments. And our youth program had focused on notes on a page for an acoustic ensemble. And so instead, we had them do backing tracks and mixes and program beats, as well as gave them access to 3 or 4 musicians that they could write for any number of them that they wanted and put them all together. So essentially, we were working on an album/concert together. And that's another thing I want to keep is that it felt much more 21st century aware. We were teaching them the tools of a contemporary composer in a way that we had been a little more conservative, maybe in the skill set that we're asking them to develop and helping them develop. How did it change for things at the radio station, Julian?
Oh, well, with KMFA, we had literally just moved into a new, beautiful building, but no one could go there because of the pandemic. There's like 3 or 4 people. We were supposed to have this grand opening of this new building. That's been shuffled off probably until 2022, maybe even 23, because the Delta variant keeps messing with us. So KMFA, all of the people that you hear on the air, for the most part, either go to the studio at prescribed hours to record their show. We put the music in, and then they do theirs. I work from home with Staccato, as well as my podcast, independently produced, called Classical Music in Color. It's all about BIPOC musicians. I heard a lot from them during the pandemic as well about what kinds of things they were doing. But at the radio station, it's a beautiful building, but it's totally empty for the most part. People are in and out, various and sundry, but we're waiting. We're anxiously awaiting to have our grand opening of our new space.
Yeah. So, Felipe, what are some things, I know you're looking forward to the orchestra playing and more and live performance, but is there anything that for Vortice or your other collaborations that you're wanting to hold on to that you've started to make a habit of during the pandemic?
Totally. I mean, I agree completely with you that now we actually really moved into the 21st century. Now it really feels that technology has finally reached us, or we reached technology, however you want to see it. And I remember in another conference I gave some months ago that I said that this world, this virtual world that we're living in, where we're having these Zoom discussions remotely, somebody can be in Australia, then someone in South Africa, and somebody in Argentina, and we can be interacting on real time. It was meant to happen anyway. I think it was meant to happen maybe in 2022. And I think the pandemic just accelerated that process. And once again, however terrible has been this pandemic, but at least this virtual world that we're living on now, it was meant to happen, is now happening, and it connected us in a way that we were never even dreaming about being connected. So, I mean, it's something that in a way, with a big quotation mark, is something good that came out of this pandemic, that now it's a very, very common practice to just connect with people from all over the world on real time on a daily basis.
Yeah, and we're about to be out of time, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the MXTX project that Felipe mentioned earlier. So this is a multi-year project with artists from Texas and artists from Mexico. And while the border was being used politically and socially as a dividing, an ugly dividing tool, we were looking to unite and make bridges. And so this is about 60 different artists in the end, half DJ producers, half composers, half and then a gender balanced collection of artists. It was, we made a sample library gigantic sample library that we're going to make free for everyone. They can use any of the loops they want, make their own music, make their own concerts, whatever they want to do with these loops. And then we made an album. And then finally when we get through all this, going to have concerts. So it's sort of we were able to do the first two pillars of the project, and we're going to do the last. And because of Zoom and because of the way this worked, we were able to actually, as Felipe said, do more projects with Mexican artists than we ever thought we'd be able to. And so almost everything we've done in the last year and a half has been some kind of cross-border collaboration, and it's just been really exciting. Okay, and I know oh yes, Judlin, last thought.
I just want to ask about Pancho Villa. Will we ever see that again?
So we've been, I worked with La Gratia Cerradas al Sol, a theater company in Mexico City, to make an opera about Pancho Villa. And we toured it a bunch, and then we recorded it, and we then never finished. So we are actually in the last stages of outputting stems, and then hopefully actually we're going to get it mixed in Mexico City and go from there. And so it should come out next year. So we've got a whole I mean, productivity was not a problem in a way. It was easier during all this. With meetings, you don't have to drive, park, and come back home from meetings. You just sit down at your computer. We weren't going out as much, so productivity was up. So we got a whole bunch of music coming out.
Although I do have to say, Graham, that I'm hearing, and I went to an event last night for the first time ever in like 2 years, and it was wonderful. People do hunger to see that live performance in person, which we're about to do that with safety protocols. So there is a hunger for that as well.
Oh yeah, I think we're all going to find a new balance. Is my hope that the slower, more deliberate, more thoughtful way of approaching things, combined with actually gathering and connecting again in a physical way. Physical presence is something that's irreplaceable, and I look forward to being in the room with Felipe and making a concert together and making music that way rather than only virtually.
Okay.
Yay! Well, that's the perfect note to end on. I gotta say, just personally, I had the same experience, that I feel in some ways way more connected to a wider variety of music makers than I did before pandemic. And I think it made a lot of people just more open and vulnerable. It wasn't just using the technology. I think that was a huge part of it, but I think people felt it stripped away a lot of the mechanisms people have for sort of boxing themselves into their roles or their organizations. And I don't know, I feel really inspired by the work that you do. So thanks for being here. And now I'm demoting you.
All right. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I'm going to put the link to the Gather. If anyone wants to come and ask you lots of questions, please join in the cafe. Goodbye. I'm coming for you, Callie. I'm coming for you. Where are you? Oh, God, my eyes. I wish I had my glasses. I think this is you. This might be you. Callie's. I'm sorry. Not professional. I think I just made the amazing Callie a panelist. But I don't see her yet. While we're waiting, hopefully, for her to become a panelist. I will just remind everyone about the Gather Town. I will re-put in that link. I'm hoping the link works for folks. Let me find it again. Here it is. Again, if you came in after I said this, it's a cafe space. It's a virtual cafe space. You don't need to have an account. You click the link, you put in your name, and you have a little avatar you can customize, and then you just walk around chatting with people. Oh man, I'm nervous we lost her. Where are you? Oh no. Pause, please. I'm so excited for Vigorous Tenderness, and I'm worried I just did something wrong, and I kicked Vigorous Tenderness out of the Zoom. One moment while I do a quick email search for Vigorous Tenderness. Oh, Callie. What did my bad eyes do? Callie. Okay. Quick panic emo. Actually, let's see. Is Evan here? I wonder if we can jump to Evan and then maybe come back. Evan, you're here. Give me maybe a thumbs up or something if you'd be up for maybe going in this slot instead of at the 2:15. Would that be okay? Maybe in the chat. Let me know if that's okay. Sorry, folks. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try making Evan panelist. Let's see how that goes. Evan! Evan, can you hear me? Evan Tucker! Oh.
Wait, what's going on?
Ah!
Sorry.
Hi! Well,
in the bathroom.
oh, that is very understandable. So technically you go after Callie, but I'm scared that Callie lost in, oh wait, oh no, I don't see her. I also don't have my glasses and I apologize. They're in a different house. I was wondering if you'd be up for going before Callie so I can find out where Callie went in the internet.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Hi, Evan.
Okay, so this is totally not the vibe of this room, but I've got a prepared text here.
That's great. But let me ask you, before you start your prepared text, would you like me to be recording or would you rather
Sure.
I not be recording?
Yes,
Okay.
I would love a recording.
I'm recording. A reminder, that means all y'all say in the chat will be recorded for all time for the ancestors to come. And so, Evan, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to mute video and audio, but I am here as a ghostly presence. If you need me, you may call on me at any time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, so please forgive the pretension here, but okay. So, all right, so I'm going to read this very quickly to get through the prepared text in 15 minutes, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Okay. Just give me a give me a everything's copacetic. Okay. All right, so I'll just get started. All right. So I suppose my name's still Evan Tucker, a self-hating, nice Jewish boy from Baltimore, Pisces, 5'4.5", he, him, and a not particularly professional composer, violinist, singer, writer, and journalist. I don't make money from music, I lose money, and any chance to recoup costs will be well into my dotage and perhaps well thereafter. This is my 4th NMG, 3rd panel, and 2nd presentation. As is the LD way, I've put off writing this for months only to encounter writer's block and therefore crammed the writing into a 72-hour coffee marathon, which set my hairline an inch back. It was torture of an entirely different form than the even more torturous process of last year's presentation, before which I was 6'3". Last year, I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and all I needed to do was take dictation from a text that seemed read into my mind by someone else. The torture last year was the vulnerability of giving the speech. I was an emotional wreck for 2 weeks before and a week afterward. I have a video of that speech, which if anybody asks for it, I can post to my website, evantucker.bandcamp.com, run by my invaluable engineer, Matt Leffler-Schulman, without whom I'd still just be hearing musical shadows on a wall. But the result of last year's presentation was that the great Sarah Bobb, guardian angel to unperformed composers everywhere, was in the audience and immediately went about hearing my music and responded so enthusiastically that she immediately programmed it. I feel a bit like Conan O'Brien after he was plucked from obscurity to host Late Night. I have no idea how it happened. I just know my life has changed immeasurably for the better by her championship. Last year's experience was yet another example of New Music Gathering being one of my life's great blessings, and I'm sure there are hundreds who'd say that. Without NMG, I can almost guarantee that hardly a single composer would even be aware of my existence. 5.5 years ago, I stumbled upon NMG in Baltimore on the very week I resolved to be a composer again. It seemed like fate, and I resolved that NMG would have my lifelong loyalty as long as they'll have me. I'd really prefer to speak about anything else. Unfortunately, my debilitations are a large part of why I'm here, so the subject is annoyingly unavoidable. So I will regretfully give a bullet point version of what I said last year. Extreme intellectual facility from the earliest age, even more severe learning disabilities in late childhood, calamitous emotional infirmity by earlier adolescence, deception into a cult disguised as a boarding school in my late teens, leading to a lifetime of cognitive delusions. It is only through obsessive consumption of culture that my Mach 3 delusive spirals ever slow down. When it comes to the most basic tasks like figuring out how to use notation software, how not to lose sheet music or files, how to remember the actual terms of harmony counterpoint formal analysis, which my musical memory lets me understand implicitly, how not to arrive anywhere an hour late, how to deposit a rent check, how to clean a house and not to hoard, I have the same ability to manage tasks I had as a child and can only fulfill them with the most severe anxiety, depression, tics, even delusions. I needn't tell you this renders jobs and romantic attachments nearly impossible, and I've certainly tried. Even were a relationship successful, I must abandon hope of raising a family or even pets. And yet, just in music, I have a perfect pitch so absolute I can identify the missing note in an 11-note chord. I can write out a plurality of standard rep and full score by memory, and I can write out any recorded avant-garde improv. My life would be so much easier without useless abilities like these. But Voltaire said that God is a comedian playing to an audience too scared to laugh, so here I am, coerced by fate to laugh as best I can every day of my life. It finally occurred to me on Thursday why writing this presentation was difficult. As a profoundly learning disabled person, I am the very last person able to give advice on this subject. By definition, the community of severe learning disability is hamstrung in its capacity for self-advocacy. We can't even explain how we're organizationally challenged because if we understood the problems, we could master them. So how can I tell you what to do to help? There is no way for the severely learning disabled to band together in advocacy as others understand it, not even because of organizational difficulties, though those obviously would be hard, but because whatever ancillary gifts are in our brains, the nature of learning disabilities is that we are incapable of understanding what's happening to us, even after living with these difficulties our entire lives. And because we are incapable of understanding them, so too is everybody. There are literally billions of people who relate to the learning disabled in the worst conceivable faith and believe that our deficiencies are an absence of character rather than neurons, which then, of course, depletes people like us of morale and convinces millions of us that even the attempt to make something worthwhile of ourselves is guaranteed to result in still more humiliation. I can't speak to what it would take to make a profoundly LD composer into someone with a chance of making a living in the currently constituted field of classical music. Or composition. I could barely explain the forms of the help I received, and I obviously haven't made any living in it. But rather than bringing LD students to the music, is it possible to bring the music to LD students? I here submit a dual thesis. One, as grateful as LD students are for the extra help, equal footing in classical music is unattainable to people in the LD community because the very way classical music has always been made rewards traditional learners, particularly in a university setting. Two, classical music has made exponentially more use of electronics as a delivery system for acoustical music than for its true potential as an artistic medium, and I submit that learning disabled musicians are the perfect types of people to discover the full potential of electronic music. What is composition is not only a complicated, loaded question, it's also a very different question now than it's ever been before, a question with so many different answers from what it ever was in 1900. All those 20th century answers would have been to the better, except that almost all the new answers trended in the direction of more organization, more preparation, more repetitive skill, more academic training. However small the windows before World War I for classical musicians to be creatures of the moment rather than planning, those windows are now shut. And as classical music grew ever more planned, the new presence of electronic recording allowed the improvisatory music of untrained musicians to be etched permanently without need for any printed music at all. So what used to be ephemeral music for a folk community of 100 became popular music for a consumer audience of millions. And classical music became ever more subsumed by erudition and training during the very era when spontaneity was more required to hold the attention and love of its audience. We are 120 years into the age of musical recording, and thus far 99% of everything classical music ever did with recording has been a reaction to the record rather than an embrace of it. We thought of the 20th century as a revolutionary century, but it increasingly seems as though we were the arch conservatives. We burrowed ever deeper into traditional forms, and even revolutions like atonality, 12-tonality, polyrhythms were only revolutions if you already knew the musical tradition being revolutionized. All the while, we've been staring at the biggest revolution of all and doing everything in our power to ignore it. This whole time, we've been writing basically acoustical music for concerts, when we could literally be recreating the experience of music itself from the very roots, and the tool with which we, with classical training, could do the most with. Whatever the systemic problems are now, The system is likely to be uprooted as it has not been since living memory was in its childhood. If COVID is just the first in a long series of world tragedies, and it may be, the system as we've always known it is about to disappear, and there will sadly never be concerts in the lifetime of many people here as we've ever understood them before. Every genre will have to rethink what music is, both in creation and performance, because soon there may not be gatherings for us to perform at for much longer than a year. And yet at the same time, there will be more need for musical community than ever before. I've reluctantly come to believe that the answer to all these problems lies in electronic reproductive music. Electronic reproduction already revolutionized everything else about the world except for classical music. But here it is, an almost completely unwritten field in which the rules of composition can change as they have not since Masho showed what could be done with four-voice polyphony. Meanwhile, we're still discussing musical analysis in the same way Debussy did at the Paris Conservatoire. Classical composers are beginning to awaken to electronic possibilities as so much more than an interesting diversion. And much of the new electronic music, like Samn is extraordinarily good. But virtually all genres of music still think in traditional linear terms, rhythm, counterpoint, form. But we are now face to face with a colossus, a whole new order of musical technology. A neurotypical person thinks in linear terms, in which thoughts are followed unidirectionally to a logical conclusion that makes sense on its own terms and needn't relate to anything else. This is therefore that. And to this day, most music is almost always composed in manners that either make sense as worlds unto themselves or in relation to lyrics in a way that makes the form even more linear, verse, chorus, bridge, and the like. But I'd venture that most learning disabled people think in quantum terms. They associate not by logic, but by metaphor. This is like that, and hold their entire storehouse of knowledge in their heads at all times, and cannot dissociate one subject from the totality of what they know. And so they make completely disparate connections between seemingly unrelated fields that would never occur to neurotypical people. So rather than thinking of music in linear, cellular, syntactical terms, the incorporation of different sorts of learners involves a wholesale embrace of conceptual, interconnected, semantic thinking. In electronics, music can now be organized entirely by extra-musical themes, collage, juxtaposition. The very fabric of ideas themselves that previously seemed to have nothing to do with music can now express themselves musically. In electronics, all things become music, of this world, the next, and every other. Electronic music operates not by the exquisite order of four-voice polyphony, but the beautifully diverse chaos of 1,000 voices. It is a wholly new music for a new millennium. Classical music always dances around embracing the conceptual and electronic, but now in an age of infinite sounds, there is no limitation to what instruments produce. Classical composition and performance has a golden opportunity to get in on what is still the ground floor of what the whole field might eventually have to embrace anyway. Committing to electronic music for consumption elsewhere than a performance, and commit to it as an equal partner to acoustic and instrumental, written with a bare minimum of traditional notation. Such a music would not only include the learning disabled, but people of every unprivileged demographic who did not have the opportunity to learn how to master classical music from the cradle. Arnold Schoenberg used to say that he was not a modernist. He was an arch-conservative forced to become a revolutionary. I'm probably the only person at this conference who'd say he has a simple, uncomplicated love for the classical canon. I've listened to more contemporary classical music than I could ever know what to do with, but my daily bread is Schubert. It's because I love this music dearly that I advocate we need to blow the whole thing up in order to save it. The inclusive progress we seek in classical music will only be made if we create an entire track that does away with the very fundaments of music as we have thus far thought of them, with much more funding allocated to electronic music from its current totals. Traditional classical musicians can still learn by traditional models, but electronic music needs to be fully incorporated into classical music rather than a small sideshow with an entirely different set of curriculum requirements so they and we may be taught anew how to write music. Paradoxical as it sounds, people of musical ability but non-traditional background need to learn just the technology of how to compose in a way that doesn't involve traditional harmony, form, and counterpoint, because with such a revolutionary technology, musical rules completely rewrite themselves, and learning disabled musicians may be the ideal people to figure out what the new rules are. I thank you for your time, your ears, and your generous presence. Please try out my music at evantucker.bandcamp.com. That's evantucker.bandcamp.com. And let me end with a very brief prayer. That we all be able to listen to each other in person next year, and that whatever music is in the future, we all make it there together in one piece, able to find appreciative producers, performers, audiences, and able to make livings from our music. Amen.
Amen. Oh, Evan.
Okay.
That was the most understandable speed reading. Holy cannoli.
Okay.
Wow. Oh, you're such a fabulous writer. So we're gonna make, obviously, since this entire panel was recorded, it'll be available for archive. But it struck me, I don't think we did this last time. How would you feel about us making a PDF of this public as well? Since you're reading from,
Sure. That would be
writing.
good.
I need to.
Yeah, that was exhausting.
Again, you're exhausted. I'm exhausted. Like my brain was trying to follow everything. I was like, and I was trying to pick out quotes from the chat. You're getting lots of thank yous and amazings in the chat.
Thank you all.
So I'm, my vow of NMG-ness does not let me ask you questions. I am not asking you any questions. I'm directing everyone to the Gather Town. I'm going to put that link one more time so we can cyber magically ask each other questions. Let me get that link one more time. Again, you don't need an account on GatherTown. You just need the password that you use to get onto this Zoom. Let's see if this works.
I was trying to bring it in under 15 minutes.
I think you did. I'm too tired to feel rushed at this point.
Sorry.
So Callie, I got an. Oh no, wait! Now I see her. Callie, is that you? Oh, Callie's here. Okay, Evan, I'm demoting you. Goodbye. We love you. Have a lovely rest of your day. Attendance. There we go. And Callie. Oh, is that you? I think that's you. I'm sorry. My glasses are in the trunk. Wait. I think this is Callie. I think Callie's about to become a panelist. Callie! Yes. Yes! Hi. Well,
Hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly. Your lighting is stellar. I'll just say I'm a huge Callie fan from way back. I kind of just want to let you take it away. Vigorous Tenderness, I just want an album and a piece and a world called Vigorous Tenderness. So I'm going to mute and just let Callie take away what Vigorous Tenderness means to her. Oh, is it okay if I'm recording? Is it okay if I'm recording? Awesome. And I'm going to be gone, but anytime you need me, you've heard the spiel. Okay, bye.
Hi, so thank you everyone for your patience, and thank you Evan for doing an order shift. I apologize for the technical issues. I am Callie Sugotsky, and I am a violist, but I'm also the organizer and curator of Vigorous Tenderness. I spent the past decade living in New York City and working with some of these amazing folks from New Music Gathering. And then when the pandemic hit, went to Maine, where I grew up. And so I'm currently in Portland, Maine. Vigorous Tenderness is an outdoor, distanced music series that has been a series of concerts on the solstices and equinox and was my solution to pandemic music making. I have been so inspired by the projects people have created during this tough time and have been very much in awe at all of the online music I've seen and been able to see because of these new possibilities. But I was also pretty devastated at the loss of acoustic music and devastated at the loss of in-person music making and heartbroken about the ways that some of the concert experiences, of course, couldn't happen. I spent a couple months being really sad and then started thinking about how can we make this work? And Vigorous Tenderness was one solution that I found to how to make music during these challenging times. I'll talk a lot more about the series, but I thought I may begin with a short video that was made for the very first concert, which happened almost a year ago on the fall equinox last September. This happened in Cape Elizabeth, Maine, just a few miles from where I'm living right now in Portland. and I will initiate a screen share and play you this video. My name is Callie, and I am the organizer and curator of Vigorous Tenderness. I also play viola. I've been thinking a lot about how music can happen during this time. What art is needed, what music is helpful. I'm really unsatisfied with the idea that music can only happen over computer speakers or on our phones. In the midst of the pandemic, I am organizing and curating an outdoor concert series that invites audiences to re-engage with acoustic sound in a safe and distanced way. This experimental concert resembled an art museum experience. We had 6 simultaneous performances on loop throughout the park and gave audience members a map so they could follow a self-curated path through the installation. The composers were queer and non-white. All of my programming is centered around amplifying marginalized voices. Many of the methods we use to mark the passage of time have been so compromised recently. This concert series will have performances on the fall equinox, winter solstice, vernal equinox, and summer solstice, as a way of reflecting on the passage of time in an earthly and grounded way. We hope that this concert would be a musical offering of vigorous tenderness to the community, and that this atmosphere would provide an opportunity for deep listening and reflection. So I'd like to make sure that everyone was able to hear that and see that. Would someone mind giving me a little feedback in the chat to make sure all of that worked? Thank you. So right now I will put up, so I'll talk a little bit about this series, and I apologize if there's some redundancy between the video and what I'll say. I've found that in some ways this is kind of a hard concept for people to get unless they can hear and see a little bit. So we had our opening concert, about 150 people came to this state park, which is right on the ocean. And we had 6 different chamber music ensembles performing on loop throughout the park. We gave audience a map and program notes. And what you're seeing right now, I'm hoping, is the map. A friend of mine drew this based on the location. And so we had people at the beach, on the path, on the cliff, ocean, fort, and woods. I'm happy to share the rep that I've been programming for the past year if people are interested. And we gave people a map and then program notes, tiny program notes, so that they could forge their own path of listening and reflection. I'm hoping that people can see map and program notes. Is that not the case? No program notes. Here comes some map and program notes. Thank you for the feedback. So we have a map. We have these 6 different chamber ensembles performing throughout the park, and I have been also thinking about how do we change new music in a way that can make it better. In Maine, there is a vibrant art scene. There's a great pop music scene, but the classical music scene is small and not very connected, and there really isn't a new music scene. And so to try to rework whose music we're listening to and how people are able to listen, and even who is coming to listen has been a problem that I've spent years thinking about, and this has seemed pretty effective. So you've seen the map, the program notes I hope you're able to see now, so people just get a tiny bit of context for what they're seeing and then are given their own agency to explore both the landscape and the sounds and how those things interact. And I've had a lot of conversations with people about how a concert hall is a fantastic place for music and is a fantastic place for new music, but it also has people stationary and it has people kind of constrained in some ways. And so bringing people outside and giving them the agency to engage or not engage, giving them the agency to connect with not just the music, but the other sounds that are happening in harmony with these works. And also giving people the power to walk away if there's something that's not resonating, or revisit certain spaces that are more meaningful. So the fall equinox, we had this beautiful cliff oceanside situation, and there were actually hurricane force winds, which made it difficult to perform outside. I've also learned a lot about programming, and of course, I think the only way to program equitably right now is to amplify the voices of non-white composers, of composers of color, of indigenous composers, of queer composers. So that is the rep that I've been presenting, but I've also been thinking a lot about how a shift from traditional Western virtuosity towards values that are so much more based on musicianship allowed a lot of this rep to happen in really compromising situations, like on a cliff in hurricane winds, or in the middle of winter in the dark in 2 feet of snow. I would love to switch my screen, if I'm able to show you a quick section of our winter concert. The winter solstice, of course, happens in December, and in Maine it gets dark at around 4 p.m. So a concert where people could come after work meant complete darkness. We had it at an urban farm nearby where there was a goat barn where we had a soprano singing Hildegard von Bingen with a goat. We had a group doing an improvisation on this snowy hill lit by candles on that Hildegard chant. We had a trans composer who wrote a transcription of a Bjork song about the solstice. We had Kevin Day's silent spaces as a way to welcome people in and kind of prepare for the space and the silence that was coming. And we had also Anea Lockwood's piano burning. And working to find a location that would allow me to burn a piano, and getting a piano, especially in 2 feet of snow, was a challenge that I was so happy to undertake because the results were stunning. I will share my screen now so that you can see a short clip of piano burning from the winter solstice concert.
All right, let's get the signal there. I'm going to need you to step back a little bit. Oh, yeah, sorry. All good. Yeah, that was the first song. I like to see. I'm going to get the first. No, it needed to be there. Otherwise, it was so.
So I was working with a volunteer videographer for this show. I wish that all of you were able to hear the sounds of the piano burning, I guess without as much voices. At times in the concert, there were these moments of profound silence where all you heard was the crackling of the piano. And I had seen some YouTube videos of what this looks like and could imagine what it might look like to burn a piano, but to see it in real life was stunning and more powerful than I could have imagined, especially the moment where there was only the soundboard left. And then the soundboard hit the snow, and the flame sounds and the hissing of the snow. It was really something. When I went back the next morning to do a lot of cleanup, it was still burning. There was still little flames, and a piano that burned through the night and still had warmth and was still creating this incredible sound world felt like a very fitting metaphor for this tough time. The vernal equinox happened in March, and in March in Maine you can still have 2 feet of snow, and figuring out how to have a concert when it could be very cold was difficult. So I purchased and built 10 individual mini greenhouses and had musicians inside of these greenhouses performing. It was incredible because even when it was 25 degrees out, the inside of the greenhouse was about 75 degrees, and you could put 4 greenhouses together in order to have a string quartet that could still hear each other and see each other, kind of. And the acoustics worked really well. I will show you a quick clip of a world premiere that a composer in Maine wrote that was in response to local Mainers who had experienced detention from ICE. And this composer, who is Latinx, interviewed these people and wrote a piece of music based on that. I'll just share a few seconds of this video. For this concert, 800 people showed up, which blew my mind. To be able to see the crowd, we had it on a long pathway in Portland along the waterfront. And I feel like maybe the thing I've learned most in the pandemic is how to trick 800 people into coming to a concert where the most recent, or the most historical piece on the program was written in 2003. And all of the composers were queer and women and gender expansive, and almost everyone was non-white. That was super powerful and was also a testament to putting music in spaces where people can just happen upon it, in spaces where people can walk to, in spaces that are open to the public to draw people in. The summer solstice, I have a video compilation of that, and maybe I'll share it in the chat. And then just 2 nights ago, I had an offshoot of a solo project I've had, Feminist Counterpoint. I got a grant to put a string quartet concert on a beach as the crescent moon was setting in an evening that combined new music with community knowledge sharing. So we had an astronomer speak about the moon and the moon phases. We had a world premiere that is to be performed in different orders based on the phase of the moon of the performance, of the night of the performance. We had an oceanographer who spoke about generations of women in her family and the carbon emissions in the atmosphere and how she was measuring them using samples offshore on an island that we could see from this beach where we did the concert. And we had a youth climate activist that said some incredibly inspiring and motivating things. And all of this, I had curated music to respond to each subject of the talk in hopes that connecting the land, the ocean, the sky, this shared environment, and these new sounds would be a way to invite people to engage more deeply with new music and with a new experience. I It's been a tough year for everyone, but I'm so very thankful for the opportunity to think about how we listen to music, whose music we're hearing, who is coming to these concerts. And I present these little snippets of these concerts in hopes that this might be useful for someone else. There is so much that I've learned about how to do a site-specific concert. I did not know anything about that until now. So I'm very happy to be a resource if anyone would like to talk about programming or logistics or how to make this kind of thing happen.
Me, I want to talk about programming and logistics, but I will not talk to you in Zoom, as is my covenant with the Zoom organizers. Instead, I'm going to go. I just put the link to GatherTown. I don't know if you have any time to meet me in the cafe, but I'm going to head over to the cafe. I have so many questions. I'm so inspired. Just FYI, if people weren't looking at the chat, 800 people for a new music concert. That's stunning. That's more than the number of people currently registered for New Music Gathering. Just put that out there. And we worked so hard to get the word out. You're so inspiring. I have a million questions. So I'm going to go click the link for GatherTown. Oh, wait. Evan can't figure out the whole NMG. Has anyone else been able to click that link? I got on it, but I'm scared that I got on it maybe in a fake way because I'm an organizer. When you click the link, it should go, I'm going to talk you through for a second. It should take you to a little spot where you get a little avatar on the left, and it says your name up at the top. Chrome, it works the best. If you're using another browser, I do think it gets grumpy. But on Chrome, you should just see an image of yourself. Oh, God, wow. I'm tired. And you can make your avatar have fun clothes and stuff. And then on the right, there's camera and microphone options. And then you just click join the gathering, which is so appropriate. And then you should just be popped into the space. I will tell you it has been sparse. So if you're nervous, like, oh, I only see myself, or oh, there's only one other person. In general, when I log on, there's maybe 2 people in at the same time. So it's, if you log on, you don't see anyone. Odds are just the cafe is kind of slow right now. But if you have a little avatar in the little 8-bit space and it's like you're playing Super Mario, odds are I think you're doing it right. You're on Chrome and you're not saying, like, Evan, maybe why don't we take this offline? You're atypical. You're beautiful. That's what you are, Evan. Or actually, if everyone else, you don't need to hear Evan and me. Maybe if everyone else, go over to Gather. I'll meet you in Gather, and Evan and I'll have a little problem solving. I'm going to do my IT hat for just a moment. But Callie, thank you. All the panelists, thank you. Gosh.
Thank you. See you
You're
again.
all amazing. See you soon. Bye. Evan, wait, I'm going to make you a panelist so I can see you. Hold on. Promote to panelist. I'm going to stop recording because no one needs to hear this. Stop recording.